Here's a trade that's either genius long-term planning or a complete waste of salary cap space. And the basketball world can't seem to agree on which one it is. The Brooklyn Nets just pulled off a move that has everyone scratching their heads. And honestly, it's the kind of decision that could look either brilliant or foolish depending on how you view NBA team building. They've officially brought in Haywood Highsmith from the Miami Heat, but here's where it gets controversial. This isn't really about Highsmith at all. Sean Marks, the Nets general manager, essentially used his team's abundant salary cap flexibility to purchase a future draft asset. By taking on Highsmith's expiring $5.6 million contract, Brooklyn secured an unprotected second-round pick for the 2032 NBA draft. Yes, you read that correctly. 2032, which is 7 years away. That's so far in the future that most current NBA players will be retired by then. But here's the part most people are missing about this deal. It perfectly illustrates two completely different philosophies about how to build a basketball team. Let's break down what actually happened here, because the surface-level story doesn't tell the whole tale. Highsmith, a 28-year-old power forward, was a consistent contributor in Miami's rotation over the past 2 seasons. He's not a superstar by any means, but he's reliable, averaging 6.5 points per game last season, with a dependable three-point shot that coaches love. However, there's a significant catch that makes this trade even more intriguing. The veteran forward recently underwent surgical repair for a torn meniscus that occurred during his off-season training. Miami announced on August 8th that Highsmith would need approximately 8 to 10 weeks for recovery, meaning he'll likely miss the start of the regular season, but should return relatively early in the campaign. Now here's where the strategy gets really interesting, and frankly, where reasonable people can completely disagree. Once Highsmith recovers from his injury, he theoretically could compete for playing time in Brooklyn's rotation. He brings the kind of veteran presence and shooting ability that young teams often need. However, the Nets drafted 5 players in the first round this year alone, clearly signaling their commitment to developing young talent rather than competing for immediate wins. This creates a fascinating contradiction. Why acquire a 28-year-old veteran on an expiring contract when you're focused on youth development? The most logical explanation is that Brooklyn views Highsmith primarily as a trade asset who could be moved before the deadline to a contending team that needs his specific skill set. And this is where the controversy really heats up. Some analysts are calling this move pure genius, while others think it's a waste of precious resources. The Nets remain the only NBA team with significant salary cap space this offseason, sitting roughly $22 million below the cap, according to ESPN's front office insider Bobby Marks. This gives them incredible flexibility that every other franchise envies, but it also puts enormous pressure on them to use that space wisely. Their most pressing decision involves Cam Thomas, a promising young scorer who will become an unrestricted free agent next summer if he doesn't agree to a contract extension before this season begins. This is actually the bigger story that many people are overlooking. While everyone's debating the Highsmith trade, the real future of the franchise might depend on whether they can lock up Thomas long-term. For Miami's perspective, this trade was purely about financial survival in today's punitive salary cap environment. By moving Highsmith's contract, the Heat dropped below the luxury tax threshold and created additional breathing room under the restrictive first apron hard cap. These might sound like boring accounting details, but they're absolutely crucial for a franchise trying to rebuild after a disappointing season. Let's be honest about Miami's situation. After trading Jimmy Butler during the previous season, they barely squeezed into the playoffs, only to get completely dominated by Cleveland in a first-round sweep. They still have quality players in Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero to build around. But Coach Eric Spoelstra clearly lacks the type of franchise-altering superstar that's essential for genuine postseason success in today's NBA. The deal also included Brooklyn sending Miami a 2026 second-round pick. But here's the kicker. It's essentially meaningless. The pick only transfers if the Nets, who are obviously built for losing games rather than winning them, somehow finish with a top 5 record next season. Given their roster construction and development focus, that scenario is about as likely as snow in Miami. So here's the million-dollar question that's dividing basketball experts. Is Brooklyn's approach of accumulating future assets while remaining patient the right strategy? Or are they wasting valuable years and cap space on marginal moves? Some argue that collecting draft picks 7 years in advance shows incredible long-term vision and discipline. Others contend that the Nets are overthinking everything and should be more aggressive about improving their roster now, especially with young talents like Thomas already on the team. What do you think? Is this the kind of patient, strategic team building that leads to sustainable success? Or are the Nets being too passive when they should be making bolder moves to accelerate their timeline? And more importantly, does trading for players you might not even use make sense in a league where every roster spot and dollar matters? Drop your thoughts below. Are you team patient rebuilding or team aggressive improvement?